In this video, I'm going to be talking about various types of interventions with couples, particularly communication and conflict resolution type interventions that incorporate spirituality into the intervention itself. So Dr. Worthington has been talking about using forgiveness, which is a spiritual intervention that's commonly used with couples, and you can make it very spiritual or mild, least spiritual in terms of their own faith tradition and the way that they want to talk about issues in their counseling. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about communication and conflict resolution. So first of all, one thing that's important for the ethics and good practice is to make sure you do have some consent for doing this. So you don't want to just work with couples and assume that they want these spiritual interventions. You want to have some kind of advanced informed consent so that you can talk with them about this and that you can have a very clear understanding of what it is that we're going to be doing here. So if we're going to talk about communication and we're going to relate it to God's communication and we're going to make sense of it, you want to make sure that the couple isn't going to suddenly kind of clam up and start to think, oh, I need to behave in a certain way now because this is God's communication, and now all of a sudden you've gotten a whole side of them that's come into the room that you didn't intend to come into the room, right? You want them to be their authentic selves. You want them to talk about the problems that they're having. You don't want them to put on their Sunday best, Sunday school fake face, right? So it's very important when working with couples that you assess this up front, how they're going to respond to that, if they're ready for it, if it's something that's going to help them be a more authentic self to talk about faith in communication, or if it's going to activate a false self to come out in the room. So this is really important when you're assessing them right up front. So when you're actually doing the interventions, one thing that can be really helpful is one of the things you're doing with communication and conflict resolution is you're trying to get the partners to bond with each other, right? To connect with each other in a warm, supportive, healthy way. And the communication techniques are not that important, according to all the research, and the conflict resolution style isn't even all that important. So all the things we teach them are not that important, actually, right? What's really important is that they find a way, a path, to be able to connect more with each other, to understand each other better, to turn towards each other and really attempt to understand each other. This is all what's really actually important and the underlying intervention. So this parallels the relationship of God with people as well. And so sometimes this can be really helpful, is to really point that out, that God has a perfect understanding of the human beings that God created, but we have this imperfect understanding of each other. And sometimes that kind of communication, and we're trying to kind of reach for the perfect. We're trying to reach for being more like Christ or more like God when we're doing our work. And that can be helpful to them as they kind of get a vision or a picture of what it is that they're trying to do with each other in their communication, the underlying kind of goals that they have as a spiritual intervention. So your goal is to get a healthy attachment between the partners, right? That's a focus of treatment. And this can sometimes also be helpful to talk about the attachment that people have with God. And so you can have them reflect a little bit on their emotional experience of God, how they attach to God. Do they have a sense of closeness to God, the sense that God is supporting them, loving them, caring for them? Or do they have a sense that they're always having to perform for God and then they're never quite good enough for God, right? And that God is always out to get them or punish them, right? And they have these kind of emotional internal experiences. And by stopping essentially what looks like stopping couples therapy to talk about their faith, you're actually helping them to make the connection between, I do feel like I'm never good enough for God. I do feel like I'm always trying to perform for God or be better and I'm not good and I'm always feeling like I'm being punished by God. And I feel the same way in my relationship with my partner. I feel like I'm never good enough for him or her. I feel like I'm always trying to perform better and do something better, and it's never quite good enough. And that maybe there's something going on inside me. Maybe there's some assumption that I have that I've been carrying all my life. And that illumination can really help the couple to break through some of the juggernauts that happen in couples therapy where they just have a hard time really understanding each other. And when the partner has that feeling and that understanding, they have a sense of being able to, their partner is sitting right there, right, and hears it. And hears that they have this feeling of never being good enough and never performing well enough. And that this can cause compassion and empathy to happen. It can cause them to really understand what it is that they have been feeling as frustrating behaviors and as really difficult behaviors, and understand it's not coming from a sense of trying to frustrate and hurt their partner. This is coming from a sense of a lack, of something wrong with them inside. And so sometimes by what looks like stopping couples therapy and focusing on the relationship that each partner has with God and their emotional experience and attachment to God, they can actually really have a breakthrough in their relationship with each other, because there is often a parallel. There's not only a parallel, there's a chance for redemption there. Because while they're working on their relationship and improving it with God, they can also have this partner right there supporting them and supporting each other and having a more healthy relationship with each other and a better bond with each other. So this is one way that you can do communication interventions that kind of help people to break through miscommunication that they're having. Sometimes it's helpful to also differentiate, however, how God is actually different than their partner. And so if people have expectations of their partner and they're having conflicts because they expect their partner to essentially be like God, or essentially expect them to be perfect like Jesus kind of thing, and that can cause conflict with the couple. And so helping them to stop and illuminate the differences between who Christ is in their life, the needs that God can meet in their heart and mind, and the things that they need to have grace for, and humility and forgiveness with each other, because they're living in this muddy world that we call Earth, and no one's perfect. And being able to accept that about each other can be a very helpful way to help the couple move through, again, these juggernauts, these blocks that they have in their relationship, by using their relationship and understanding of God. You can also address external stressors. So sometimes couples come in and work with you, and it's really not actually their relationship that's the problem. It's that they're under so much stress. I've had couples come in and, they have a child with a very serious illness that they're dealing with. They may be taking care of, aging parents, and they're giving all their energy to that. I have had couples come in and they're working full-time and they're going to school full-time and they barely see each other. And they're just, the work that they invest in their relationship is down to almost zero, because they're having so much external stressors. Sometimes the external stressors are their own health, and they're having their own health problems that have come about. And so when you're working with that, you can often stop, again, what would be kind of normal couple therapy and just the two of them, and bring God into the room. If they're ready, if that's helpful to them, you might ask, would you like to bring God into the room as you face these stressors together? Is there a way that you can use the spiritual practices and spiritual disciplines of your life to help you deal with this highly stressful, difficult situation as a team, as a couple together? Because that's what typically brings them in, is that they're not working as a team. They feel alone, isolated, and lonely. And so having them use their faith and spirituality can be really useful to them, so that they can have a better way to address the stressors that they're facing as a couple, and use positive religious coping in support of each other. One of the interventions that I've actually found to be surprisingly helpful with couples is the use of gratitude and gratitude journaling. So this can be religious or non-religious, depending on the couple, but you can make it religious by having them daily write a gratitude journal to God for what they're grateful for their spouse. So when people are in couples counseling, it's often because they've begun a negative cycle in their relationship, and they're kind of caught in this negative cycle, and they see their partner in a negative way, and they're disappointed, and they're hurt, and their defenses are up, and everything feels very negative. And so gratitude is like a total antidote to that. And so having them daily write down even just one thing. Can you do just one thing each day that you write down that you're grateful to God for about your partner? And it seems like it's not relevant, right? Like, it seems like this is totally separate from the problems of our marriage, right? We're here for marriage counseling. But if the couple will buy into it, and sometimes for the sake of their faith they will, and get involved, you can see big differences from one session to the next, because they're paying attention and looking for something positive. They're looking for the blessing. They're looking for the gratitude to God. And by changing their mindset, they begin to shift away from defensiveness and away from negativity towards something more positive. So it's actually been really surprising how useful this is for couples who are just kind of stuck in that negative tornado. So gratitude can do that, and blessing prayer can also do that as a way to help the couple to become more positive. I know couples that I've worked with who they'll get in the middle of a fight, and they do have the wherewithal in the moment to stop and say, okay, we're in a fight. We need to just pray a blessing over each other and over this issue, right? And just stop and pray a blessing. And so by having this positive prayer intervention, they can really short circuit something that can just turn into this negative tornado if they don't have a way or a path to take to get out of it. And sometimes one partner is better at that than the other. That's fine. Doesn't matter. You just want a chance to be able to stop the negativity that couples get stuck in. So those are just some ideas, some ways in which myself and the lab that I run at Regent University have tried to use spiritual interventions to help couples to break through and change their negative patterns to something more positive. In the next video, Ev Worthington is going to talk some more with you about positive prayer and the research and interventions in the use of prayer in couples counseling.